Okay, so we should be live all the time. I'm going to see the viewer activities. I think there's 2 viewers, which is welcome. Always start with 2 somehow. And then, so thanks a lot for being here. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. I think in the... Okay, so now everybody should be hearing me everywhere. On MS Teams. So I'm going to put the MS Team. I have the thing here if people want to join. Hey, oh, you are back. That's very cool. Thanks again for joining. Now I'm trying to get better at this. Hey, Step. Hey, how you doing? And I have the MS Team. So the funny thing is the MS Team is too long to put in the chat. But now I put it... I have a tiny URL, which you can join directly there. So MS Team join for real-time audio video. Okay. So if you click on this one, you can join the real-time video if you want. Oh, I didn't start the meeting there. I'm still getting confused with everything. Okay. So you can join directly over there, or you can, and oh, I see you, Eoxid. And you should be able to unmute yourself without me. Okay. I'm learning. So today what we're going to do is going to be pretty cool. Is we're going to do that one. If you don't hear me well, whatever, you know, send me comments and everything. I think everything should be working pretty nicely now. So the more I do it, the better I am, kind of. So today here, what we're going to do is going to be pretty cool. We're going to do production coding. So again, production coding, the way that I define production coding is not necessarily cloud application, web, and all these kind of things. Is more any code that you do for any crate, any app, any system, any part of the system that if it breaks, it puts a lot of people in a mess. Yeah, so that is a little bit the way that I define production coding. Sometimes you do a very small part or a small library, but you don't want to break it because otherwise it will create production and users pain. So that is the thing. And so typically, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I only have time now for production, what I will define production coding a little bit, and I have a lot of balls rolling, but they are all intended to be in a production environment. And there are some that are more mature than others. There's one thing that I've started a while back, and that is the MCP client. So I started an agentic crate, and the agentic crate is going to allow to do an MCP client, MCP server as well. And that will go to the AI pack, but people can use it in other things as well. This live stream here, they are going to be public while I'm streaming. They are actually going to be unlisted for 12, 24 hours. So you will be able to watch it because I don't want to cut people short at the end if they have to go or whatever. So you can, you know, bookmark it or whatever and then go back. And then it will be early access members for 2 days and then indefinitely for the live stream. So that is the way it kind of it flows into the thing. And so today here, so let's go about MCP client. If anybody has any question, feel free to join in the MS Team or in the chat as well. MS Team is a little bit more, it's fully real time. The chat, you have there's a delay here of a few seconds. Okay, so now let's go back there. And so what I've created here, and I'm already on my pro coder because that is the way I code. But what I've created is an agentic crate. Okay. So when I created the agentic crate, so if we go to, I'm going to see if I can. Crate.io. So if I go agentic, This is the crate here that I have. And this one, the goal of this crate is to implement the MCP and the A2A. I'm going to start with the MCP first. MCP is super important now. In fact, we have 3 types of users on planet Earth. The first one is us, human. We go, we look at HTML, we click and everything. The way we discover UI is via a web interface. And if there's a good UI designer, we shouldn't have to read the manual. And then we click, and then we use the app. Okay, so that is one user interface, one user type. It's an user with either web interface or obviously desktop interface, which now they are mostly HTML anyway. But you click and you discover as a human. The other one is the APIs, which we are familiar with. So you expose an API to another service that can call you. And in fact, the web browser talks to our web server via an API. Okay, people do REST. I'm not a fan of REST. I like JSON RPC, even for this kind of web APIs, because most of the code are RPC based. When you download a file or download a resource like a file or something, then REST makes sense. Yeah? So if you download a report or something, you want to have a clean URL and everything, that's good. But if you want to have an RPC call, rather to have the gymnastics of trying to match your functions to some post, patch, put, and then have meetings and say, hey, this is a patch, no, this is a put, look at the Wikipedia, and all these kind of things. JSON RPC say everything is a post, it's JSON, and here is method name, params. Very clean. Now, we are looking in this industry here because the MCP guys, I think, and A2A, the agent-to-agent from Google, they all want 100% JSON RPC. The great news about JSON RPC, hey Dan, the great news about JSON RPC is that it's protocol agnostic. So in fact, every Rust coder might use JSON RPC more than REST during their day. I'm being a little bit aggressive here, but Rust Analyzer is built via, is using JSON RPC. Yeah? And it's not Google RPC where you have to compile and all this protobuf and things. It's just JSON on the wire, and the wire can be anything. It can be HTTP, can be STD in, STD out, and all of these kind of things. And that is the beauty of the JSON RPC. The Anthropic guys, they really understood that, and they put that into the MCP protocol. And so now the MCP protocol say, hey, I can call via STD in, STD out. So I don't even have to have a server, because every new line will be a JSON RPC call. Yeah. And so that allows us to kind of go back. And so if we go to JSON RPC pay, it's dead simple. And this is what I love. I don't like easy, I like simple. And there's a big difference. The doc is so, yeah, but here's the thing. So basically you do a JSON RPC, that is your mark, your JSON in a way as a JSON RPC thing. They have the ID. This is not the ID of the items that you are doing, it's the ID of the request. Can be anything, cannot be null, can be null in notification, but in RPC it cannot be null. And then the only guarantee here is that the server needs to echo this back. A good practice is to have this ID unique. So that you do the thing. The beauty here, and this is why the difference between, there was a good, I don't remember what it was. It was a YouTube video or someone, it makes a very good video about the distinction between easy and simple. Easy is close of reach. So usually you intertwine things to make everything easy. And so at the end of the day, it's spaghetti, but then people have other name for the spaghetti. Yeah, they call it next, fancy name, but it's a big spaghetti ball. And then you have to use it all because you cannot really spit it out. And then it's all and nothing. Yeah. Simple is harder. Things are decoupled and things are layered, but every layer is smart at what they do and dumb at everything. And they don't have to know about the other layers. And you can use the layers the way you want it. The nice things about JSON RPC is to say, hey, it's JSON RPC, we don't actually care about the protocol. We're not in the business of post, put, patch, get, delete, and all of these verbs on the HTTP, which is kind of a weird gymnastic to put into an RPC call. What they are saying is, well, the format is JSON, and you mark it, you have your method, which is your method name, whatever method you use, and your params could be an array. I don't like the array. I use, and I think this is what everybody's using, this one here, which is the params where the name parameters. Yeah, so that is the way I like to use it all the time. And then you have the ID. Now, the cool thing about the ID is because it's so simple, this spec, it does allow to batch things or to have things asynchronous. Because if the client is disciplined about giving a unique ID, and the server, I mean, this is a must, needs to echo back for that response the IDs that he got, then we get full concurrency, parallelism, and all these kind of things. And so it's starting to get very interesting here because we don't have, it's a RPC, but it doesn't have to be on the same thing. It could be, for example, on top of MQTT or an event bus or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So it becomes very powerful. And obviously on top of REST, it's super easy because it's just a post. Yeah? So the deal is you post it and then you get a JSON back. And the JSON is always, again, a JSON RPC. I think they have it somewhere. I think. So in one of my long videos, I need to, and I don't know if I have that in my, let me see it, if I have this in my, I need to revive that because I had a JSON RPC kind of slide at some point, which was, oh yeah, oh, look at that. I'm not too bad. Okay, that is pretty cool. Look at that. This is a much better doc. So that is the JSON RPC. So that is a video that I did a while back. Oh, this is a new stuff of Sketch. This is a video that I did a while back about, sorry, I'm getting confused. I did a while back about, in my big video of web application development, that's 2 years ago or whatever, about JSON RPC and why I choose JSON RPC. So I think there's a whole thing here. So let me go and see that. I'm going to try, look at that. I do magic without my hands. Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, so yeah, so this is basically what REST is. Yeah, so the thing with REST is when you want to build a CRUD, and by the way, when you do a web apps, it always starts with a CRUD, but it never ends with a CRUD. You always have more things. CRUD is just a subset of what we can do is create, request, update, delete. But making an API or making a protocol or whatever, just based on that is a little bit naive because you will always need more. And so that's not the scope of whatever communication protocol you want to have. So with REST, we do this thing and it's like, okay, you want to create is a post, you know, and then you do everything and then you have a long discussion about, well, is it a patch or is it a post or do we recreate everything? And if you miss something, do we delete it? So then you have all these questions and then you say, if I want to request one, it's a get. Then I did the ID. So I say, okay, I'm happy about this. Then you have to do the S. So the S is a pain because company is companies and all these kind of things. And then the request you start putting, you want to say, well, it's a get, yeah, because it's a request. I'm not changing anything. So you put everything in filters, but sometimes you want the filter to be more powerful. And so in the get, it becomes very tricky. And then you start serializing JSON in the URL. When you start doing that, you know that you go haywire. So then after you say, well, update, oh yeah, this is what put. And then you have the discussion between put and patch. And people talk about things and all of this. When you start asking too many questions, when a code design or whatever design start yielding too many questions, something is fishy. Yeah? It doesn't pass the smell test or whatever. It's like, well, okay, if we have all these questions for a very simple thing, it's probably the wrong approach, yeah, the wrong track. Now, when things get very popular, they never stop. Somehow this is a snowball. I was old enough to remember Java Server Faces. Nobody talked about Java Server Faces. But back in the day, if you didn't do Java Server Faces, you were not an enterprise developer. Yeah. So there's this kind of things. Oh, this is frustrating. I'm sorry about the Christmas tree here. It's a new update of Sketch, which I cannot turn off, unfortunately. So hopefully they will fix that. But Sketch is awesome. I'm using Sketch app for all of these kind of things. And so then we have the delete and then the delete and stuff. So the JSON RPC, and I'm not going to talk about GraphQL and everything, but the JSON RPC is more to say everything is post. There's nothing else. And then here's a format that you have. Request ID, which can be a string, a num, or null. And your name. So that is my best practices. And in fact, now, yeah, that is my best. Is that? Yes, that's my best practices now where I do snake case. I put the noun, the entity first, underscore, and then the action, the verb. And that order much better. It doesn't matter. Yeah, do what works for you. The point is you have a method name, could be camel case, could be snake case, could be big gradient, small gradient. It doesn't matter. But the cool things now is that, hey, you use your stuff your way. And it maps to a function call that you have. That's it. There's no magic. And then you have your params. In the spec JSON RPC 1.0, you could only pass array, I think. And then in 2.0, you can pass array and all name parameters. So I like the params name parameters because it fits very well into the typing and everything. And the success is the same thing here. Is basically now we are sending the ID RPC kind of things. And then the spec only give this. It's only say you do that. And actually, here, I'm sorry. I messed it up somehow. I don't know why. Oh, this is not at all. If I do this, yeah, anyway. So I need to do JSON, the thing here, that JSON RPC. And then this, I'm getting confused now. This is JSON RPC. Yeah, too much Rust here. And then I'm going to put 2.0. Yeah. So that is a marker. That is, it's really important to always put it. I wanted to simplify it, I think, but it was a bad idea to simplify that. And so you want, the goal here is every payload needs to have this. And that say, hey, I am a JSON RPC payload. And then the response here is just the ID, echo the ID, so the server doesn't need, shouldn't think, and then the result. And then there's some agreement about some basic error code here. They define, some, they have in the error, yeah, you have code that is part of the spec as well, message, and then you can have data, I think, and you can put anything you want in data. So this is the thing. So it's really kind of explain the frame, the basic, and it's very simple. It doesn't go deeper than that. Now, for my application, when we do application stuff, and in fact, I'm going to update this. I have a thing which is called JOQL, which is JSON-oriented query language, but don't worry too much about that. It's just sometimes when I do spec for our own application, I put it outside if people want to use the things. But it was the days where I was still doing camel case, but that I'm going to change that into my new best practices. But the goal is, you define your function and you normalize your function across your application and everything. And then you normalize. So in my case, I have, hey, I have the verb, these guys, and then I have customs. And so I'm trying to normalize a little bit more the namespace because JSON RPC doesn't go that deep. And that is a beautiful thing because we have a very good base and then we can have our normalization on top of it. And that is what JSON RPC is, okay? So going back here to the big talk is we have three types of users again. The end user, us, the APIs, so that is with REST or JSON RPC or Google RPC for the cool kids. And then after what we have the new one that we have for a couple of years. And I know we all have an AI fatigue. I have AI fatigue as well, yeah? But AI is here, we stay, and we have to use it. So it's not a question of, is it going to go away or not? It's not. I was here in the Silicon Valley in the .com. People were tired of the internet. Well, today we do everything with internet, yeah? Between Amazon, YouTube, and everything. So AI is going to be part of everything. And so now what will happen is that we have another type of users that didn't happen for the last 3 decades, 4 decades, is AI. And I'm not giving a conscience to AI because AI, sometimes people think, hey, it doesn't want to turn itself off. It's not. It's just something that has learned a lot about a lot of things that we wrote and can resonate and can regurgitate, but also resonate the way that it has learned, and then it can build on himself. So it's kind of a scary in a way, but there's not even an it. Yes, it's not something that think. But now, because of the MCPs, the tools calling and stuff, what happened is all of the AI agents, or all of the AI providers, or even us when we build AI apps, what the AI needs and tools was good. Yeah, I had some videos about building AI functions, coding function with AI, what is called now tools. But the problem is, well, how does the AI discover a service? So when we go to a web UI, we have our eyes, we discover, again, assuming the UI designer is okay, we're going to discover and we're going to click and do the stuff. Well, the AI has our reasoning superpower in a way because we train it to have it. But doing the way that they were doing 6 months ago here, like screenshot and everything, is cute, makes manager happy, the CEO happy, demo happy, but it's not something that scares anyway. So people are happy, but nobody is going to use it because it's like, okay, it's cute for a while, but I'm not going to have the things like sending screenshot away. It can work, yeah, you can force feed it, but it doesn't work. Now, the nice things with MCP is to say, well, MCP is going to give us a way of saying, here's my tools, and you can ask me what I have, the tools that I have and everything. You can discover me in a programmatic way. And this programmatic way is with MCP and is with JSON RPC. And so when you look at JSON RPC here, is what I've done, it's a long story here that I started, but is they've done I'm a big fan of the MCP spec. They did a great job on the spec. And one of the things that I love about the spec is schema.ts. And this is heaven. Because TypeScript, TypeScript has pros and cons. We do love TypeScript when we code UI and stuff. We code it in TypeScript and things. It's tricky to go TypeScript crazy because sometimes you can get really kind of PhD level kind of typing stuff. But overall, if you use the core things of TypeScript, the value is great. But there's one other thing where TypeScript is amazing, is to describe dictionary scripting kind of types. Yeah. And in fact, in AI Pack, I even use it to describe Lua types. Because it's the typing is very expressive, it's relatively simple, and it's very intuitive. And so what they've done here is they've done all of the spec of MCP in TypeScript. Okay. And again, when you see params here and methods, that is JSON RPC. So everything is on top of things. Here they decided, which is fine, that their best practices was to have a slash. Okay. So I don't know if they want really camel case, but this was kind of a namespace separation. And so they decided here's our things. So the nice things about that is that now we can use this protocol to talk to an MCP server, or we can build our MCP server. And that is where the agentic crate comes in. So the reason why I created this crate is to say, well, A2A will come later, yeah, but MCP is a big one right now. I want to allow people to create their clients or their server. Okay. Now the cool thing is for my Rust web app, the big video, I built the rpc-router crate, which allows to take JSON RPC and to route it to async functions. And in fact, if you follow my videos, there's one where I did function calling, and it was already a little bit of, I'm not saying it was MCP, but my point was I was taking the tools back in the JSON RPC. It was not JSON RPC, but actually I turned it into JSON RPC. So I give the thing, and then it gave me the JSON tool calls, and then I had my RPC router, JSON RPC router, and I was routing it like this. So I have a video somewhere. I don't want to take too much time, but I had that. And so now the cool thing is that we can have this kind of clients, and it doesn't really matter which server or which client, there's this protocol, and now we can even have different transport protocol. One is std in and out, and the other one is over HTTP with SSE. SSE means that you send an event, doesn't really care about the event, and it's a new line. Yeah, so everything I think is this one, SSE, it's a server side event or whatever. And so you keep your connection open for a while, and then you send, and then it can communicate like that. Yeah. And there's a crate that supports SSE. So now we can do that. So this crate here, my goal of this crate is to do that. Yeah, to have a way where you create a client, and then you say, hey, today it's only the client stdio. That is the transport. And now the cool thing here is the guy, the MCP guys are actually providing a lot of, I don't know if, yeah, I think that is one of them. They're providing quite, yeah. Oh, yeah. They have a server property, which is not super good because it's weird. You cannot get the HTML content or something. There's something weird missing, but it doesn't matter. But at least you can call you can control, but you cannot, I think, get the HTML back on. There's something a little bit silly like that. I did not find a way. But regardless, you can call any kind of MCP server. And my goal of this agentic crate is to make it as ergonomic as Node.js. Yeah. So when you look at the Node.js example, something that is making noise. Node. If I'm trying to go. So that was a spec. And then if you go to the example, we're going to go to the TypeScript example, perhaps. I don't really remember. There might be. Okay. So this is the thing. This is the server for the client. And then the client. Yeah. This one. Okay. Is that, yeah. Yeah, so that is the thing. So I wanted to have, there were a better example, but I wanted to have a crate which was as simple as that. And so that is what I've created here. And the way I did it, it was pretty interesting. I took all of the spec in TypeScript, and then I use AI pack, I have videos, and I say, hey, with this spec, so that was the prompt I have. And in the coder prompt, I gave all of the spec in my knowledge globes. And I say, with all of this spec, help me create this. The first try that he did within that, it was too idiomatic to Rust. It was not really ergonomic. And then I did my own path, and then I use AI to augment it. So sometimes AI does a good path, sometimes you go back, and then you go forward. So now this crate is about 4,000 lines of code, and it supports all the types. Yeah. And I'm supporting, for now, the std-in transport protocol. And my goal is to support SSE and custom and all these kind of things. So that is this client crate. So in fact, if we go into our examples here, we're going to see that we have this one that works pretty good, which is the model. So one of the things is MCP, a lot of the content of MCP is done with Python all the good news is also with Node.js, TypeScript, and everything. So you get a lot of servers from the thing. So this one, for example, hopefully I put it somewhere. Place here. I'm trying to find the place where I have the document somewhere of where there's the examples. Give me just 1 sec. I'm trying. So there's a MCP SDK. So we're going to search here. Want to do our sample servers, core concept, stdio, MCP clients. So MCP example servers. So I'm looking here. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. So there's one thing here that I'm using. And again, these puppeteer things, I don't remember, I'm sorry. But I was very excited to have found this one. And actually, I have my own puppeteer. I have my own puppeteer MCP. But I was very excited to find this guy here, which is, you know, the official kind of things. So npx is when you install it and you run it. And then this is stdio, and then you run this guy. Yeah, so this guy over there is what? Is this one. Okay, so I think this is, oh, look at that. Oh, funny. They removed it. Okay, so it's funny because actually I want this one. I want to use this one because I want to test. So this is what I wanted to do today. We're going to use the everything. Yeah. So the thing here is we're going to try to connect like this to see if it works. I have it installed, so I don't know. Let's go, and we're going to do a cargo run dash example client C01 dash simple. So we're going to run that, and that is going to run, I mean, it's going to compile, and then hopefully, yes, it did it. So now the trick of this puppeteer is it does it, but I don't know. Oh, no. I'm sorry. So now, here's the thing. We didn't call anything, yes, on this one. My test, so the way that I organize all the time, my examples and so on, is that I have my examples, and then I have clients. So here I'm going to have server and client, so it's 2 dimensions. So I'm going to have client C01, and then I like to have C01, C02, like chapters. Like this, I go simple to more advanced. Yeah, so that is a little bit the things here that I'm going to do. So what we're doing here is we're having the tracing business, and then we create a client. So that is the way I design the APIs, yeah, to be relatively ergonomic, where you create a new client. In fact, you can compare it to the Node.js client. Is almost as simple, if it's not simpler. So you create a client, and in fact, if you look at the APIs, what I like to do is to have this impl into kind of thing, such as now we can pass a static string or full string or whatever, And that will not, if you pass a full string or on string, it won't duplicate it. The only catch of this, so the Rust purist will say, well, actually this will create 2 functions, or actually 4 functions, worst case scenario, or even more, because for each type, each concrete type, it will generate a new function, which is true. Now, usually the way that you use it in your library, in your application code, will be always the same way. So you're not going to have a huge variant way. And you can manage it there. And if that is a problem eventually, this is a small code base, small function, but I could put that as an in-air function. And so it's just the signatures that get things. But for me, having this kind of interface, and I don't abuse it too much. Typically, I don't like to have too many because they multiply. But I like it because when I can, it makes the API much simpler. Yeah. And yeah, much simpler to use. And it's much clearer in a way. Yeah, because you know you want to pass it kind of a string thing, and then you don't have to be a string expert. Yeah. So anyway, so I do these kind of things, and again, then after I create, and so this is the thing, so I create a new transport. So you create a new transport and you say, hey, this is a command line. It's a stdio transport. I give the command line, I give the argument, and then I have some options over there. I don't really remember what is the option is. No. No, it's not option. What is this? Oh, it's a current dir. Okay, so like this, I can define where I want to call it from. Because sometimes you might have a command line that only works from a dir and stuff. So that allows you to have the current dir. I might add more kind of things that I could have done it as an option. Eventually, this could become an option of things. Yeah, but anyway. The problem with options with a S for stdio, I will have that. The problem is you cannot really have options of none because then it's getting kind of verbose to say them. So anyway, so that is the way that it works. And now that I have the client, I do a client connect transport. So that mimics a lot the API here. So let's see. Actually, perhaps. So the nice thing is I wanted to use everything. The everything kind of server, the nice things about this is that it has everything. Yeah, so it's a good one to do the testing. So I wanted to, rather to use a puppeteer, I wanted to use that server. They don't show an example of how to do that, but that is what we're going to do today. We're going to change from puppeteer to use that guy, and that will be our C01 simple. But now what I've done here is I created the client, and so now I connect. One thing important to realize with MCP, and I hope I'm not going to upset some people, but it is kind of a stateful, also MCP expert. Is it a kind of a stateful protocol, meaning that you have this concept of connect. So here, this client is going to be a connect. And then it connects to it, and the server gets a connect. And I think I'm 99% sure that the server needs to keep states for that connections, which makes a lot of sense, yeah? Now, in an std in IO, because it's a command line, it doesn't really matter because the server will be instantiated only for that connection. So in a way, if you just do a command line, is where people will connect you, and I think that's it. You can disconnect, but then you can say, hey, you cannot reconnect. So that will work. If you do a server, then you should definitely manage this state business. Yeah, because you're going to have different things, and I think stuff will get in states. You need to remember what to send. You need to send the notification to the client and everything. But so that it what. And so in Rust, this is now mutable, because I do need to mute the self and to set this transport business. Yeah. and perhaps later more states and so on. So we'll see that later. And then after I create, and the way it works with MCP is you have a way to ask the tools is what are your tools? And so what we're doing here is we're going to take our client, we send a request, can be any request. And the way that the API is built, the ergonomics that I decided to go with, the design, is to say you can pass, I'm going to click on it, anything that get into a MCP request, okay, into that. In fact, this one is a trick to be a little bit more flexible in that. So basically I'm saying it's self, and then your request rec here needs to implement this and needs to implement that. And so the P is a param types. And the MCP request is a struct, which has the RPC ID, which comes from the RPC router. And that is a type because the RPC ID, there's a very cool video from Logan Smith, I think, about the arc-str business. So when it's string, I use arc-str because this one is going to get cloned usually quite a bit if you send the things around or whatever. The methods, I'm not doing that. It could become an arc-star as well, str, and then you have the params here. But the ID, usually you take it out and then you send it around. So this one gets cloned much more than that one. So that is what I sent. And so because of this, the list tool param, so I split it like that, yeah. The list tool params, which is into my tools, they are here, and there's params here where I can put meta or pagination and so on. And then I have a default news, a default. I can have the inline builder. So that is one of my builder pattern. And now what I can do is I can do a send request. So I'm sending a request, and that will return a MCP response, which is actually a JSON RPC response. But I know that it's going to be a list tool response because this guy does a magic and he knows, so there's a type magic here. So actually it will return a list tools result, which is pretty cool. And then I have my this type. And this type has a meta if I want, I have the next cursor if I want, and I have the tools. So that is what I okay, sorry. The MCP response is ID with a result, yeah? And the result is the guy that I was talking, that we show right now with metas, the tools. So that's why that then after we get the result here, list tools, name is things, and then I'm iterating over the tools. And that is what we saw, yeah? We see that we have these kind of things. So that is becoming interesting now because I can query any tools. And in fact, let's change this guy to, we're going to change the server. It's funny that they removed the puppeteer, but it was not a good one. I mean, it was something I was missing because you couldn't get the HTML or something crazy, or there was something weird you couldn't get. You could navigate, but then I don't think you could extract the HTML, which was, it's a little bit the whole point. So now I think we're going to do that. We need to see, they don't show an example. Yeah, so this one is the one we want to use to understand things. Now, do they have? It's not like JavaScript where Rust, where we have examples. That is a cool pattern that we have in Rust. If you have any question, feel free to ask. So right now, what we're going to do is, so what I will do is go back there, and say, okay. Well, I guess I'm getting a little bit confused here. No. So what we're going to do is that guy, we're going to go here. We're going to do to npm. We're going to search for that guy. So now we're going to search for everything. Do we do this? Cool. So that's good. We're going to search for stdio to make sure that it supports the stdio. Yes. Oh yeah, cool. Okay, so that is, you know, the R is a cloud desktop. That's good enough for us. That's actually pretty cool. And I think is what I had there. And then I'm going to go there. And so what we want is, so it's good. So that is what I wanted to do. And I explain everything. If I go too long, if I never know if I should go faster to the code or explain the concept and everything. So I explain a little bit of the things. But right now, so again, what we're doing here is we're looking at the agentic crate that I manage, that talk to MCP, that offer an MCP client. It will offer also MCP server. And so right now we just can call the tools. And then I have an RPC router, which will allow us to route the things. So now I do the transport, and I don't want that. I want npx, that's good. Y, that's good. And that's it. And this is a magic stuff about MCP, because just by doing that, we should be good to go. Because the whole point of MCP is to allow generic introspection. Yeah. Back in the days, when I was young, had hairs, we had Microsoft Ole. I had this big book of Ole's that I never really read and I never really understood. And it was only something that always stick in my mind. It's like, how come I'm not smart enough to understand Ole? And after years, I understood it. It was just about another service discovering the service of the other guy. And I read that, but somehow it didn't click in my head. Because then I said, well, the programmer has to know it anyway. So something didn't add up. But now with MCP, but it was useful, yeah? So it was me. It was a me problem. But now with MCP, it makes sense, yeah? Because we want to say, hey, MCP, here's the tools, and you can discover it. So now if we just do that, so I'm going to do an npx. So I'm not going to be that brave. I'm going to, and that I think it will install. Okay, good. So it's installed it. I might have already had it. I don't know. And so now we change the things by that. And I'm going to do this one, yeah? Cargo run example stuff. By the way, I have a shell alias, which is I can go cargo watch example, client C01, simple. And that will do a cargo watch. Boom, that's it. Yeah, so that was long just for that. I should have started with that. So the thing I'm saying is to say, now the cool thing is, hey, we ask all the tools and we're not in Puppeteer anymore. And it gave us all of these kind of things. And it's actually what I want for that code. So that would be a good one. So now that we have this, we are going to say, we're going to try to call echo. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that. Git log. I like to do the log to know where I am, and I'm going to do a git c. So my best practices on Rust is in my cargo. I always have this .4 dash work in progress. So like this, everybody knows. I mean, everybody. Like for me, the me of the future is like someone else in a way. So I like to help myself. My later self. So this way, I always know when I look at a repo, I say, hey, okay, cool. This is work in progress and it's not this version. So that's my little best practice. So I check that I have that, and then I'm going to do a git commit. So I have an alias git c. This one is a small, so I do a dot and say example, C01 example. Now use, and then I do that. And that is perfect. Now that we have that, we're going to create another example, which is client C02, and we're going to do a call tool. Okay? Call echo. Call tool. So this way I don't have to change the name if I decide to call something else. And this is where AI could have help. And then this one is actually wrong here. And then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to this guy plus, and then I'm going to do a git commit amend, and that should just get this guy up. Yeah. So I merge the stuff. You don't need to go to the next one. So simple client C02 MCP tool. Okay. So now we're going to do that. Now, in fact, when we're going to build services, we're not going to call the tool ourselves. Yeah. So typically, we want the library to allow us to do the call and all these kind of things, but typically it will be the AI that will come back. Hey, Tommy. So it will be the AI that will come back, and then we will take whatever JSON tools MCPs is sending us, and then we do the callback, and then we send it back to the AI. Yeah, so that is the dance of doing an MCP host. Okay, if you want to do the host, the cloud desktop or whatever. If you just want to do the server, and agentic will allow that, I will show how to do a server. So I need to add the server capability to agentic here. But right now we're making sure that the MCP client works. The nice thing is the types obviously are the same in both sides of the pipe. So once we have the client working with well-known servers, then after we can do the servers in a better way. So again, tracing here, I wanted to be fancy. I had the code. Sometimes I don't put always tracing here. The reason why I put tracing is because tracing is important for this kind of libraries. And so like this in example, I make sure that it is useful. I can see, the debugs and everything. So that is another way for me to test my trace without writing testing trace. It's a low key. I mean, it's a low quality test, but at least I have an idea of what's happening. So now, what I do is we do that. I can do. So what I will do if I were alone is cargo watch extension, which is one of my thing. I need to put it somewhere, and then I do client C02 call tool. So right now, so the question here, the good question is your code run somewhere in production or is just examples? So right now, this crate is designed to be run in production, to do MCP client or to do MCP servers, but I am at the very beginning of that crate. Yeah. So right now we're like building the examples to make sure that things works. I'm showing to you, and it's actually what I would have done anyway to make sure that I get the right types and the right ping pong. And then later I might do some lives about how we're going to add server side. And so there's kind of few topics that I want to do in this crate is how do we route it with JSON RPC router? How do we implement the SSE? So if the server is in the server mode, and this one apparently is, how do we implement SSE? So that is probably a live. I don't know if I'm going to have time today. I have a hard stop in 1 hour. But that is going to be a live that I want to do to add SSE transport to the client. And then is to add the server, such as we can do servers. Now, one thing that I think is, I really think that now when we do a server, even for a web UI, why not doing MCP anyway? I mean, we always do JSON RPC. So in fact, I'm saying, well, even if it's a thing, if it's for web UI or an API, so APIs depends because you have other people that are going to judge you. But for web UI, usually people don't mess around with it. Might be good just to have a JSON RPC kind of things, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah. So this is the thing. For us, regardless, MCP, I mean, for us, regardless, we always do a JSON RPC on the backend, regardless of the thing, even for public APIs, because it's very simple, it scales very well, and it fits very well as RPC. So to answer your things is we're spending time on the examples right now to make sure that this crate works. And this crate will go into, the goal of this crate is to be in production. So it's not to demo. So what I'm going to do here, so what I often do is I copy paste the first one, I rename to C02, and then I run it again with my cargo watch. And so I'm happy I'm at this stage. Typically what I do is I will do something like that. I will do git add, git c, so git commit -a-m, and then I'm going to do, here it's a minor one, so I do a dot, and say examples add client C02. Okay. Hey, Xavier, how are you doing? Feel free to talk here. If you can talk, actually, I can check if it works, and then I can make sure that it should work nicely. People should hear you nicely, hopefully. So client 2 here, and I'm going to do that. So that I'm adding client 2. And my strategy, which is sometime, it's so. Like here, this is my client C02 is not finished, but I'm going to git amend as I progress. So this way, I have the base, I'm happy, and then I'm going to progress, and then when I'm happy, I'm going to git amend it. Sometimes I create a branch, perhaps, but I'm not too dogmatic. I like to have clean commits, yeah. So that is a way. Git amend can be dangerous because you don't want to amend something that shouldn't be amended. So anyway, so now that we have that, we are going to, so we have all the tools. So we are happy about this. And I'm going to keep this. Eventually that I would probably remove it because I want it to be, every example to be on things. But here's a way that this crate works. So call echo. So the echo will be probably the simplest one. And in fact, here we are going to have something like that where we're going to say if tool name equal echo. I want to display more, so I think tool. So I don't care about the other guy. Well, we're going to do like that. And then we're going to go to the tool. Okay, that guy. And then we're going to go name, description, we don't care. Input schema, this is what we care. Optional, additional, that we don't care. Input schema, and that is this guy. And that is the properties here that we want. Interesting. Need to think about it, how I can print it nicely. So on this one, I have my debug prints. That is my Rust NX practice. And then I have, we're going to do tools, debug. Yeah, just like that. And now I should debug the thing here, which is not super pretty, but that's fine. Description, input schema. So the property is message, is an object. Oh, no. Description, and the type should be string. Okay, so that is the way it works. I could do a pretty print of this guy, it will be nicer, but this one is tough. But it's actually, do I have a, was that smart? Trying to see if I was smart enough. Yeah. I will do like that, perhaps. This will be the better way. So here what we're saying is to say print it in a nice way. So it will do it in a verbose way, which is not as nice as JSON, but is already better. It's more readable. Yeah. So we have message, and then we have the type here of string. So the way it works now is, so in many ways, when you have that, honestly, is the next level of swagger. I'm going to change what I was saying before. I was saying, well, for public APIs, we shouldn't, perhaps it will be too aggressive to give MCP. Well, MCP has this tool business which gives you this ability of giving the schema of your APIs and the description and stuff, which is useful for the AI. But in a way, that could be the new Swagger or the new whatever, the Open API or whatever they're calling themselves. Because that is, we just describe in runtime our application the MCP way, and then that's it. Yeah, people can use it with AI or with APIs. So I really think that this MCP, so the thing I'm very happy is that JSON RPC is king now. So that's great. And I do even think that this value of just exposing normal APIs for normal API developers, even in MCP, I think. I need to think more about that, but I don't see the downside of this. So now you shouldn't rewrite all your APIs, but for new ones, that might be good. So now we're going to call the echo. It's a little bit slow here, but so we have the loose call, and I think I have a call. So we're going to have the let params, and then I think I have a call tool params. Yeah. And these types map the spec. So if you go to the spec here, this is a spec of big fail. Call tool. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So it's call tool, and in my call tool request. Okay. So it's call tool, but in Rust, I didn't have a call tool request and I have it hype all the time. I have a MCP request, which has methods and then has just params. And that is the thing that is typed. Yeah. So it's called tool params. So that is the thing. So when you look at the spec there, you can find there's a one-to-one mapping with this guy. Now, sometimes there's type alias. I think AI kind of added this, but I'm not sure I want to add it, but I might. I'm not sure. But now what I have is let param equals params, and then we're going to have something like that. So this one, it's imported. And then we're going to say, we're going to look at it. And this is the name of the tool. Yeah, fair enough. So that will be echo. And then it will be a hash map. That is the way it works here, of string and the value. And I've done, because it's, it's a pain to do this kind of thing. So I've done the call new with a name, import into string. So that is what I like to do. And then I have these things. That is my best practice. I'm not saying builder is always bad. I like separate builders. For some of the things that I do, I have separate builders. But also sometimes I have a pattern where I want the object itself to have builder-like interfaces. Yes, I'm not too dogmatic about putting everything into another builder kind of things. And so that is a way that I like to have it. And so this is why here I don't have a call tool params, builder and everything, because then you have builder, and it's not ergonomic, I think. So I like to do stuff. And that is a thing. Sometimes in Rust, you have those macros that is awesome, but then it makes us think less about the ergonomic of the API, because we say, hey, it's cool, I'm using this macro, it has 200 million downloads on thing, everybody's using it, and now I have a cool automatic builder API on my type, but then it's not ergonomic. Yeah, it's not as smooth as it could be, and then it's kind of thing. So like this one, for example, I mean, that is where it comes a little bit personal taste. Yeah? So we're going to do a new, and we're going to do a new echo, okay? And that will return, that cannot fail, so I don't need to just have, and then I say append argument, and then I'm going to say message. And the value here, I'm going to say hello, live coding. Press save, boom, everything compiles. So the trick here, I'm going to put it in 2 lines like that. The trick is there will be an argument in Rust to say, well, Jeremy, it's cute your stuff, but you have input into string and input into value here. First, I didn't put the serialize here. There's a reason, because the value, if you pass a value, it won't clone it. If you pass a serializer or things and then you serialize, it will duplicate what you are giving. So that is a little bit the reason why I do a import into value here. But the nice thing is that simplifies so much. Yeah, just these 2 import into here, and it could have been generic over there, obviously. It simplifies so much, and I think makes the ergonomic so much better. And again, yes, it will duplicate this for the types, but usually you always use the same kind of type in your app. And if not, this is very small. Otherwise, I can do inner function and then do the stuff. So now that I have this, I created my 2 params, super simple. And now I can do exactly what I did there. I have my client and my thing. Yeah. So build the param. And then we're going to do the call. And then this is stuff. This is not going to be that. I'm going to do this one. So here's the thing that I like, again, is the way that I build it. I'm not saying I don't want to be cute, but it's like what I always say, I don't believe in truth, I believe in proximity. So there's many ways, good ways to skin the cat. The point is, one thing with JSON RPC, if you want to be clean JSON RPC, you need, it's a good idea to have unique IDs for the ID of the request. because even if you don't need it, you can. The spec allows you to pass null. MCP doesn't actually. It says you cannot pass null, but the spec allows you to pass null or pass always the same. But MCP says it should be unique, and it's right, because otherwise everything will kind of break apart. Yeah. So that is a strong requirement of MCP to say everything should be staffed. But you say, well, Jeremy, you really don't create any ID over there. Well, that is part of the ergonomic of the API, I think. Is to say, well, when you pass a thing in the send request, it's something that can get into a MCP request and then also implement this guy. I implemented this guy because it does allow us to have the method here. And so that's the way that is a magic way to automap the request with the response. Yeah. So now the cool thing is, with just this little trick, look at that, the type. And that is beautiful. Yeah. So now the way that the types system works, when you send this request, it will say, hey, you sent me a call to params. So the response will be a call to result. So this is pretty cool. At least I like it. And then on top of that, what I have is in the requesting tool, I don't know how I'm going to find this one, but I have, let me search UID. So basically by default, yeah, by default, when I have an into MCP request from a param, okay, I call the RPC the new UUID v7 base 58. So I like a lot base 58 because it's concise, there's no special characters and everything. And v7 is nice because I have the timestamp in a way at millisecond precision, kind of. So that is all, it's for free. Yeah. Now it's tricky because sometimes you don't want timestamp for HIPAA kind of things, for example, where timestamp can pollute your data. And then in this case, you do not pass things you can create by yourself. Yeah, but by default, it will create the new UID. So the cool thing about this is here, I didn't even have to worry about the UID stuff and things. I get my response. And inside my response, I do get the ID if I want. So res, we can do a debug print here. And we're going to say res, and we're going to print it the long way. Press save. And now, boom, we have my string here. That is base 58. So again, there's no dash, no thing and stuff. So for parsing, I mean, I'm a big fan of that. And then, and there's no performance impact here. I mean, that would be silly. And then there's a little bit probably compared to 50, but it's not in the same order of magnitude, so we don't care. And then we have the call to result, no meta. That is the thing that come back and say text, echo, while back, annotation done. And that is pretty cool. So that I like a lot, this ergonomic. Again, it took me a little bit time. I asked AI to do it. AI did it in a super dogmatic way. From phone, no problem. Voxid. But you have been there a lot. Well, now I think is you must be speaking almost French, I guess. But anyway, the thing I'm saying is I like a lot this ergonomic. And it took me a while, couple of days to find it. AI, when I gave the thing, it gave me a whole thing. It did not have the same structure, but it gave me the whole thing. It was very impressive. It compiled. And I think it was correct, but it was like super hard to use. Yeah, for the same thing, I will need double number of line of code. So for me, APIs, ergonomic is not, we don't want to go the jQuery like. I don't know if some of you look at the source code of jQuery, but usually you have for a ride, yeah, because everything is a function, return a function. It's like, and I'm not saying it's bad code, but you have to be really into this mindset to really understand it. Now, the usage of jQuery was beautiful. Yeah. So that is where the developer was very good, because he developed his way behind the scene, but the usage of jQuery was very fluid and very ergonomic. So his API was perfect. The code he has inside was, you had for a ride. So my point here is that the ergonomic of an API is very important because it adds to code clarity of everything above it. And if we have too much tab because we want to be too dogmatic, about never doing import and stuff and all these kind of things, it's possible. But then you get all of this noise everywhere, and that we want it or not, our brain, we're like, oh yeah, okay, this take a string, oh, okay, and stuff. And then you lose time. And right now, if you look at this code, and obviously I'm biased, yeah, so take what I say with a grain of salt, yeah, but if you look at this code, just this code just to call, yeah, I mean, it's even put it in one line. I even have to put it in multiple lines. It's pretty, let me move that. Okay, sorry. Okay, I cannot move. I am in a mode where I cannot move anymore. But the thing here, let me scroll down, it's the same thing. And then my point is that it's very simple now. I call my tools and everything, and there's many ways I could do that. I think one thing I'm missing in my APIs is to say, well, if I have a JSON, can I create a call to params or something like that? I'm not sure that I'm missing that, actually. I might, I don't know. Let's go back. No, I don't miss that. So you can create it from a JSON, guys. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's cool. And in fact, we can do the add. Let's do the add, because now we're on a roll. Yeah, so we're going to press enter. So like this, we're going to see the add. And where's the add? A, B. So A, and is a number, and B, and is a number. Okay, so we're going to do that. So this is what we're going to say is, we don't need, so I'd say call echo. So that's my convention. I have this kind of 3 level of comments section with a code region, then this guy, which is kind of a delimiter, and then the normal comment. So now I'm going to do call, add. And so the reason why I like a lot, I mean, again, I'm the biggest fan of Rust, obviously. The reason I like a lot this stuff in Rust of examples is, first, I would like to thank every great author that have great examples, because I look at that more than the doc. Yeah, usually it's my go-to. And after is autocomplete, where I come and click on the function to see the doc or the code or whatever. And then I go to the doc. The web doc, while I have tremendous respect for people that does that, somehow for me, and it's just me, I think it's just a me problem, the Rust documentation somehow, and so if I go to Blake 3, okay, I'm a big fan of Blake 3. This one is very simple, I guess, but the Rust documentation, I don't know, there's something I'm always confused. It doesn't, I understand the categories, it's nice and things, but it's not somewhere where I learn, and it's not somewhere I navigate too much. Often I go to their examples. Oh, that's cool. They have examples. And then I take that, and then I come and click on the APIs, and I go from there. And sometimes I go to the doc, but the doc, I don't use it that much. Now, one thing I'm going to work with the AI pack is to make a Rust 10x agent that will take any crate and you say, build me one-page optimized AI doc, such as I can send it to any AI, including AI Pack Procoder, my cursor, my whatever, it doesn't matter. So I'm working on that, such as we can build these kind of things. And that could be an MCP tool. So params, call params. And so now we have this guy and we're going to call. So I'm going to do this. Is ugly, but that's fine. And then I'm going to say add. And then the append argument is not this, yeah? So I think that is going to do. And the append argument is going to be A. And I'm going to say 1. And just for fun here, I'm going to do B. And we're going to do 2.5. Okay. Now, why does it compile? For the one that just jumped in is because in the step up. So, well, I don't want to have, hopefully you don't have me loud for other people to hear in the car. So the thing is, the append argument over there, again, I'm using the impl and impl into value. So that is what I'm using a lot, such as, it's very ergonomic here. And yes, he will duplicate the code for things, but it's fine. The net value is still very high. But that could be either way. Yeah, someone could say, well, okay to have it here, but here's people need to do an into, and we'll take a value. Yeah, that is a valid approach as well. Yeah, so don't be dogmatic. Like, go with whatever the team decide. And then we're going to call the request, and then we're going to do the stuff. No, but I messed up the thing. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, I often do that. Okay, I got afraid here. I lost my OBS for a while. So this is echo, and this is add. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, so that is the echo. So we're calling echo message stuff. That is the add. We're calling things. We're doing stuff, and then we're pretty print here. I mean pretty print, not ugly print, but long print. And then boom, we had that. And so that was the A. That the first answer, which is our echo, hello live coding. And that is our second answer. The sum of stuff is 3.5. So that is pretty cool. So, that's not cool. I know. So when I do my live coding, I have a different, I need to put the Rust. One of my mistakes here is I need to put my Rust FMT there, such as when people do pull commits and everything, it follows the pattern. Let me do that here. So I have one here, which is at the top of my thing, this guy. And then this is a good practice to have. So like these people that do commit and like to do clean pull request and like to do clean pull request, if they see a Rust FMT or if they have their tools, they will use that. And that will allow to do the thing. And so when I do demos, sometimes this changes a little bit. But anyway, so I will add that later. And then that's pretty cool. So I'm going to comment that. I'm not going to print. So this is best practices of what I do. The print dash greater than this arrow key, I reserve that only for my debug print. So, there's two kinds of developers, people that put breakpoints, people that put debug print. For most of my application, usually I like to develop in an event-based kind of things. And breakpoint works, but they add complexity and things. So I'm not saying breakpoint is a bad thing. My thing, often when I debug, I have this debug print. what I don't want is the debug print to be left out in a commit. Now, in example, I want the println because that is a little bit all the point of the thing. So when I start the example, I have the dash greater than, but then I'm removing them because I want to make sure that when I do Control F and I look for this marker of debug print, I have 0, because otherwise, if I have to say, oh, it's okay, it's examples, it gets a little bit harder to mentally parse. Yeah. So this way, I'm going to remove those guys. And then I'm not going to do the list tools in this one. I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to say println, and I'm going to say calling echo, and something like that. Okay. And then echo tool. And then I'm going back down, and I'm going to say on this one, on the next print, so we are doing 2 calls here. We are doing the call echo tool, and then we do the call add tool. Okay. And so that's it. And now I have a pretty cool thing. I like the clippy clean here. It's telling me that I don't need list params. That is true. And then MCP tools. So now I'm very happy because what we did here today is I used Puppeteer, which I was not a fan anyway. I'm happy they removed it. It gave me a high hope, but it's kind of a break. And I will show you what I use for my Puppeteer because I'm doing experiment. And sometimes Puppeteer, I have a little JSON RPC server, not MCP actually. I did it a while back, and it's a JSON RPC one, which actually the AI coded it for me, but my way. And that allows me to navigate, but even it allows me to navigate to a browser that I already have open. So I have the browser open, and with Puppeteer, you can do that with WebSockets. There's a little dance to do that. And then I can browse LinkedIn or whatever, and then I can ask AI to give me the HTML select CSS query selectors to extract interesting information. So the cool thing is I can almost go to any site and I slim the HTML, I send that to AI, I say, give me, the selectors, and then it gives me the selector. And then every time I go to a page, I run the selector. So I don't send the whole page again to AI. I just run the selector that it gave me. So it's an interesting experiment. This is definitely not a production thing. But the point is, the Puppeteer, I had high hope, and then it doesn't. Now, in AI Pack, there's a couple of crate in Rust, which is very cool. There is a one which is headless browser. I think is the one I use. Rust. So I have these things where, if I have the things which is called my XP kind of pattern, where I have a big folder where all my XP files, and I have Rust. So sometimes when I make videos about SQLite, you can see that, Rust XP SQLite. And this is what I have here. I have which is not mature enough for me to share, but I have this Rust Puppeteer kind of business. And so, for example, if I go, and so that was the experiment of the data. Yeah, so I can go to the data. I mean, here they don't have data. But on YouTube, he had some data there. Yeah, so this is basically when I was browsing, it kind of got this. But I didn't tell it really what to download. I just told it to download what it thinks can be interesting, or data items. And the things that I used on this one was, headless Chrome. Not the same one? I thought it was a bigger one. Oh no, headless Chrome, not headless browser. Okay, so I was using, it's a headless Chrome. Okay, so this one is a good one. And then yes, the MPSC, I mean, all of this message passing kind of stuff in Rust is very cool. I use it quite a bit. In my AI pack, I use it. I'm not super happy yet. Sometimes it can be clean up, but it's always a good practice to put it in and then to clean up later, because it's very powerful to be able to decouple threadings from Tokyo task, and then you have message passing, and then you can do that. So the comment was, started to use MPSC stuff on the web app in Fume, really cool stuff. And Flume, I think it's not Flume, it's Flume, Discrete. I'm a little bit all over the place here, but Discrete here is a multi-producer channel kind of business. And the cool thing about that is when you have one, you can call it async or sync. And that sometimes is game changer, because sometimes you want to have something in a sync function for whatever reason, or vice versa. And having just one thing that does both is game changer. So anyway, so I'm a big fan of Flume, but whatever you use, message passing is good. So anyway, so there's headless Chrome that allows you to control the Chrome via their specific things. And then there's a couple of, let me see here. There's a couple of, another one, don't remember which one. Oh, I didn't tell. So there's also one that uses the WebDriver API. So WebDriver is a little bit more involved, because you need to have a WebDriver and everything. It's not WebDriver. There's a cool name. There's another name. So you don't want to go too low, but there's a good name that allows you to control your browser via the WebDriver. So you have the Chrome puppeteer that you can control without JavaScript, yeah? And then it controls the thing. And then you have another one, which is a Chrome driver. So my plan of AI pack, which is an AI runtime, is to embed that into the Rust runtime, such as you don't need JavaScript to control your browser. And you can do it directly in Lua. Or you can make an MCP tool about it and all this kind of thing. So it's going to become very, very powerful. So anyway, all of that is, I don't know what I want there, but we added that. So I'm actually very happy with what we added. So now the debug here is quite a bit. So I'm going to tune it down a little bit. And I'm going to comment it out here, which is fine. So the reason why I commented out the tracing debug in my examples is because I don't need the noise, but I like to have it here, such as I can enable it to make sure that things make sense. And it's a quick way of knowing what I'm tracing or what I'm not. It's not a safe way. It's a quick and dirty way. So that's it. So I'm pretty happy with that. So today here, what we did is we did that. I'm going to have to go in like 30 minutes and things. So I'm not sure I'm going to have the time to do the server side, the server protocol. So the way it's happening here is when we create the client, we create with the stdio transport config. What I want is to do exactly the same thing, but with a server. Yeah. And so it will be client, perhaps HTTP transport or whatever they are calling it, or SEC transport. Yeah. And that will call that. So I'm going to amend git. Git amend. So now I clean up all of these two tools, so that will be cool. Git add. I'm going to add my Rust fmt.toml. Git c plus, well, this is minor. Add Rust fmt. And git push origin, oranges. And then boom, push it. So that is an alias again that I have. I have many alias. I'm lazy to type. And then this is what we did today. So that is pretty good. Now, one of the things here, and I still have, 20, 30 minutes, so probably we can look at that. One of the things is that I like to do is look at the server business. So if I go to my thing over there, and one thing I'm going to do is, so that is all my example servers. So what I do sometimes is in all my source code, I have everything that starts with dot except dot ignore, except the exception is not committed. So I have a notes.md. I thought I had it there, but oh, I have it. It's hidden. Because that I'm hiding things from in my VS Code stuff. I had this, but to not confuse people. But this is what I have the file here. So this is a docs, this is a TypeScript, and that is a server. Servers. And then the one that is interesting is the everything. Oh no. Oh, MCP. Okay. Yes, this is the page I remember. That is a page. Examples. And then, so for the one that are just coming, we are doing agentic crate to talk MCP client. And we have added those two examples to the agentic crate. The agentic crate is available agentic crate over there. And it's still very early, but it's starting to be quite a bit complete in a way from a type standpoint and from a client protocol. It's actually pretty complete. From that point, it's not ready for production yet. So I'm still working on it a lot to put it in production. And the first production that it will be built, it will be inside AI Pack. And then obviously people can take it, fork it, or whatever. And so then we have the server here. So that's server example. And then this one is this guy here. Everything. Okay. That is that server. And then what I'm going to do, because I like to do with demo server. So here I'm adding the URL to the examples files. See, okay. So that is the one that we have. Now the question is, okay, we have that, and how do we call it into a server base? So I think into a HTTP server. So it's kind of pity that I have to go, because it's actually, I would love to do that. But I need to break my live stream. Sometimes I make my live stream too long. I'm sorry, everybody. So this is the thing. Login, usage cloud desktop. It's only stdio? No, we had it before, no? Did we run it? I thought we run it as a server. Okay. Transport. Okay, cool. Running SSC from source with streamable. Okay, so that is what we want. Yeah. So again, the cool thing with MCP is that you can have a command line and it's std in, std out, and that is a little bit the same way the same way that Rust Analyzer work, I think. Yeah. So it's a command line, and then it goes like that, and then the other ones is the server side kind of things. And so that will be probably for another video. So what we'll do in another live, and I'm not sure when, but what I want to do now is add into my client. So when you see that there, I will have, I need to find a way, hopefully there's an NPX way to start the server, such as people do not have. So I will do a little bit of research here. So to make sure that we can start this everything as an HTTP running from source with HTTP plus SSE. Oh, deprecated as of streamable. Okay, so I thought this replace. Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, so well, that same me work. Okay, so apparently the SSE, HTTP SSE transport has been deprecated. And now is a streamable HTTP transport, which is, I'm sure, is 90% the same. Server part has an independent process that can handle multiple client connection. Yes, it should. Oh, the one before couldn't. Okay, so I assume that this transport use HTTP post and GET request. Interesting. Server can optionally make use of server-side event. Okay, so what they've done here is to say, well, binding the thing to a HTTP and server-side event or whatever it's called, it was too limiting, I think, for people. I mean, or too confusing because perhaps people didn't want to have, they were used to have this post and get kind of things. And so it's still JSON RPC, obviously. Yeah, so HTTP post is still JSON RPC. I'm not sure about the get business, but it's still JSON RPC, but and it can use server sent event, but this way people doesn't have to go all the way into server side events, I guess. So that is the thing. I didn't really follow what was before because I focus on the stdio, and somehow I missed a memo on this one. But the point is, this is what we're going to support. So we want to add the support for the streamable HTTP. Things such as if you have a server as a streamable, we can do it. And so if we go back on this one, we're not going to implement that. We don't need to implement deprecated stuff. We will implement that. Yeah, this one, which is the streamable HTTP transport. So I will do probably that is stdio, so I don't know. Yeah, so it's the same thing, same kind of things. Every JSON RPC sent from the client must be an HTTP post request, yeah, to MCP endpoint. The client must use HTTP post to send stuff, must include accept header, yes, and text event stream. And then, yeah, they support everything. So it makes total sense. It's a good cleanup. Yeah, so we'll do that in the next live stream. If you have any question, feel free to send to do. Sorry, I've been hiding the question here. It's not on purpose. It's just because I have too many windows. A question here: can you please talk about smart pointers? I'm not, I think there's a smart pointer things in C++. I'm not sure if there's smart pointer in Rust. There might be smart pointer in Rust. I mean, there's box and all these kind of things, but I don't know if they are explained where I can, yeah, what is smart pointer in Rust? Yeah, so in C++, yes, in Rust, I'm not. Okay, stand corrected. Use Rust smart pointers. Okay, I'm getting confused here. Oh, yeah. So it's a box T and all this kind of thing. So I don't think there's a smart pointer thing. Yeah, in Rust there's this box arc. I mean, arc could be considered kind of a pointer. RC, ref, and ref mutant things. Yeah, there's all these kind of things. Typically, honestly, I don't often use, when I do dynamic dispatch, I use box. I try to stay away out of RC as much as possible, usually. Ref and ref mute is not the thing I often use. So for me, I use box when I have a dynamic dispatch kind of thing. Sometimes you have to use it when you have, dynamic pointer kind of business. Dynamic async function. So you have to box pin and there's a whole dance over there. But typically what I do is I either have box or I have arc sometime. I'm not too ashamed of using arc when something is immutable and things, I use arc. So my typical best practice is on my function, I always try to have reference first. And again, Logan Smith has a great video, is when it's option of something, rather to have reference of option, I have option of reference. And so I think he's right. But otherwise, first, my function, I try to have references if they don't need to consume the data or to clone it. If they need to clone it for whatever reason, well, then after I might say, well, the code needs to pass it on, such as I don't clone it if it's not needed, such as the caller can decide to pass it or not. And then otherwise, I use arc. And then I use box mostly when I do a dynamic dispatch or when I have this async pointer. So I'm sorry, I probably don't answer you very well here, this question. For me, there's not such a thing as a smart pointer in a way. I mean, there is a concept of smart pointer in a language, but I think in Rust, the way they explain it in the doc, this is the right way. So it's box, RC, and stuff. I stay away of RC and ref, typically, but it depends. Okay, any question? It's a good time to ask. I think now is going to be the end. That was almost a 2-hour session. I have an issue to make it shorter, but hopefully it's not too long. If you have any feedback, feel free to give me feedback on anything, on Discord, on the comments on these videos, and so on. And then the thing here, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the thing. The video will be, I'm going to keep it unlisted for 12 to 24 hours, for public to access it, such as if you didn't access everything, you can watch it. And then we have the early access members will have access for 2 days, and then the live stream members will have access indefinitely. I mean, from today, obviously, until end of time, of YouTube time. So hopefully everything was useful. It's kind of a long session here, but I wanted to introduce MCP and all these kind of things. I do think that MCP is critical for anybody to master. And I do think that even when we think about APIs for anything, Yeah, not only for AI, but APIs for web UI, for whatever. I think the MCP might be a good protocol. It's just JSON RPC with some introspection, which is some live documentation, which if you want to have people accessing to your documentation might be a good idea. Yeah, that doesn't supplement other type of documentation, but I think it's a good way to expose APIs. Yeah. So hopefully that was helpful. And we're going to do more live now for the next couple of weeks. So feel free to subscribe, to like. These things are always helpful. And then until next one, happy coding. Okay. Now I need to turn it off.